Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 296 of CryptoBiography, and it is part 3 of The Brick Wall. And here we go. I'll give you an answer by tomorrow. How late will you be open? About this same time. No practice bouts tomorrow, just the guys training, so come by whenever it suits you. Thanks, Mr. Abernathy. He put out his hand, and they shook. Jake, he said. Jake, and call me Carson if you like. You bet, kid. Carson left. It was quite dark, other than the widely spaced streetlights. He had no fear of being attacked, though. His size was a barrier to any but the most bold criminal. He thought about what it would mean to box, to put his body through that. He had no fear of training, no matter how strenuous it was. But fighting was something else. He'd only been in a few minor scuffles. Most of the kids at his school had not been looking to get in a fight with him at all. The couple of times they had, he hadn't even hit them back, just pushed them away, and that was enough. Then there were 3 times that someone from another school had started a fight with him or one of his friends. A single hit, which he had not given at full strength, had taken care of things. That night he slept well, because he had already made his decision. He went to work, and the day went slowly, but not as slowly as the days before. At the end of work he went to Abernathy's. Today the ring was there, but no one was in it. Instead, exercise equipment was scattered around the floor. A few men were lifting barbells and doing other exercises Carson didn't recognize. Jake was at the far wall, near the small corner that was cut out of the large rectangle of the gymnasium to form a small office. Carson strode over to him. I'd like to train with you and box for you. Jake smiled. I'm glad to hear it. Have you quit the stables? I can give my notice tomorrow. I don't think he'll need to give me more than 2 weeks. If need be, he can sort of keep up the stables. Okay, I'm going to start that over. I can give my notice tomorrow. I don't think he'll need me more than 2 weeks. If need be, he can sort of keep the stables clean himself for a few days while he finds someone new. You give your notice. As soon as he lets you go, we'll start. Perfect. He turned to go, stopped, then kept turning away. Need anything, Carson? He looked back. No, thank you, Jake. Jake gave a bit of a look. Then he crossed the few steps between them and gave his hand to shake. They shook, and Jake said, Gift. When he pulled his hand away, he saw that Jake had slipped him a $5 bill. This was about a week's wages at the stables for him. A young man needs pocket money for this and that. Carson flushed, and he wondered what Jake might know. Thank you, Jake. I'll see you as soon as I can. I got you, kid. Carson left and went back home. Next day was Friday. As soon as he got to work, he knocked on Mr. Littleman's door. I'm quitting, he told him. I can give you a couple of weeks, but then I'll be at Abernathy's gymnasium training. Is that so? Mr. Littleman said, giving him a look Carson didn't understand. Okay, Carson, thanks. Mr. Littleman shut the door, and Carson went to the stables. A short while later, as Carson was getting the first bucket of water to scrub the stable floor, he saw Mr. Littleman out on the street, walking with purpose. He was going in the direction of Abernathy's gym. Though there were a lot of other places he might go in that direction, Carson wondered if he wasn't checking with Abernathy to see what the situation was. About an hour later, his sneaking suspicion was confirmed. Mr. Littleman marched up to the door of the stables. You're done. Go home. I'll pay you for the whole day. This meant he was getting his week's wages, minus Saturday. Thanks, Mr. Littleman. But if you need me to fill in until you can hire a replacement... Nope, go on home. He paid him his $4 and took the mop from Carson. Thanks, Mr. Littleman. Yeah. He sounded a little short, even angry, but then his whole demeanor changed. Listen, take care of yourself over at Abernathy's. That's a tough place. I know, I'm going there to box. Yeah. Anyway, just be careful. Okay. Carson turned and headed out. At first he thought of going home, but then, since it was midday, he decided to walk to the library. He also thought of going to Abernathy's, but figured he would wait until Monday to start training. He wanted to meet with Lydia first, though that wouldn't be until tomorrow. He enjoyed a long time at the library, along with a nice lunch of sandwich from a local deli. He took several books home with him that evening. The books helped him pass the time Friday night and into Saturday. He made sure to clean up well before going to O'Shaughnessy's. As he made a simple meal of bread and dried pork with a nice apple he'd picked up on his one brief sojourn out of his room, he considered that Lydia had chosen 9 o'clock probably because she didn't want him to feel obliged to buy her an entire meal, or that she didn't want to feel as though she had obliged him. He wore his one decent suit to meet Lydia. Despite this, when he entered, he noticed he was not dressed as well as the average person there. He made a note to buy new clothes when he had made some money with Jake. He was early, as was his wont. He looked around, but didn't see Lydia. He asked for a table for two and waited. The bar was busy, as it always was on a weekend night. Not that he had been to the bar more than a few times since New Year's Eve. He didn't have too long to wait. Lydia came in a few minutes after 9 o'clock, just as Carson was about to be given their table. "I hope I didn't make you wait too long," she said. "Not at all," Carson said, and motioned for her to go ahead of him. "So, how was your week?" she asked after they had each asked for a beer. "Eventful," he replied. "I quit my job at the stables." "Oh?" she said. He realized that he had not mentioned his stable job during their short conversation. "Yes," he said. "It was just some work I picked up when I got into town." "Well, it was certainly fast. Why'd you quit?" "I'm going to become a boxer." That stopped her short. "A boxer?" "Yes. I'm going to be training over at Abernathy's gymnasium." She sat back in her chair and looked levelly at him. "What do you know about Jake Abernathy?" "It sounds like you know more than I do." "Well, you are new to town. Did you ask around about him before you joined up with him, at least?" Carson shook his head. Now that she mentioned it, that would have been the wise thing to do. She understood him. Jake Abernathy has always been too big for his britches. Always some big scam, some hustle. Everyone seems to think the gym is some sort of front, though no one seems to know what it would be a front for. Did he tell you why he's recruiting boxers? He said he wants to make a big splash in boxing, put together a stable of boxers. Well, that part is probably right. Sounds like him anyway. But he's never had the kind of money to do something like that. His gymnasium's never made money, so far as I can tell. Not legitimately. So what's he hiding? Well, he did talk to me about how businesses need to borrow money to get going. But who loaned him the money for his gym? Carson could only shrug. He had no idea. I don't like it. I know we haven't known each other long, and so I'm not really in a position to give you advice. But if I were, I'd tell you to figure out a way to get away from Jake Abernathy. I'm not sure I can. I have nothing else. Mr. Littleman, who owned the stables I was working at, didn't want me to give him any sort of time. He just had me leave. So I'm planning on starting Monday. I already told Abernathy I was quitting the stables. Lydia nodded. I wish I knew more. All I can do is advise you to be careful. Thanks. He smiled and leaned forward. It's nice to have someone I can count on, since I don't know many people here. She put a hand on his forearm and smiled. Well, with me, it's like knowing the whole neighborhood. I've lived here my whole life, and I know, or know about, darn near everyone. And that's the end of the story for this week. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm definitely enjoying writing it. And if you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, CryptoBiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, or Mastodon. And thanks for listening. Words and Music copyright 2023, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictionalized, or satirical.